Okay, another quick video here on the range, talking a little bit about gun manipulations as a lefty. So, some things like if you are drawing a gun left-handed are simply done mirror image to what you would do as a righty. Other things like reloading, for example, can be done a little bit differently based on the controls that a particular gun has. So I'm going to talk through a couple different makes and models and a couple different techniques you can use to reload a gun left-handed. For this video, I am just going to cover reloading from slide lock. So that is cleverly known by some people as a slide lock reload. Some people call it an emergency reload. If you are reloading in this position, whether for self-defense or in a competition of some sort, as the Russians would say, you are having very bad day. So for example, in USPSA, even in production division where you're limited to 10 rounds, most of the time you will be running a stage plan that gives you a little bit of leeway so that you can always be reloading with at least a round left in the chamber, and you don't have to worry about closing the slide. Obviously, in a self-defense situation, if you're reloading the gun, that means things have gone south. And if you are shooting IDPA, that's really the only practical shooting sport I know of that requires slide lock reloads on a regular basis. And if you're shooting IDPA instead of USPSA, you are having a bad day anyway. Obviously, I'm kidding. That line was specifically for Robert Wyatt's benefit. So let's talk a little bit about taking the magazine out, and then we'll just get into how to close the slide. So on some guns, like the Glocks, for example, you have a reversible magazine catch. So usually, as a righty, you're going to do something along the lines of flipping the gun in your grip if you can't quite reach the button, to drop the magazine out with your right thumb. As lefties, you have a couple options. You can find a gun like an XD that has a button on both sides so that you can just mirror image that. Or you can find something like a Glock that has the button that you can reverse and simply put it over here so that you can activate the button with your left thumb. The other option, and this is what I do, and it takes a little bit of practice, is I simply use the magazine release on the same side that a righty would, and that is over here on the left-hand side. Now there's a couple different ways to do that. One that I've seen people do, and is a very valid technique, is bringing the trigger finger back and hitting the button like that. I don't personally do that. What I do is I use my middle finger. So I will move my middle finger back and hit the magazine release. So apparently I was being a little bit too long-winded. So I personally will bring my middle finger back and hit the button that way. Pretty simple and straightforward, and that's how to get the magazine out of the gun. Getting magazine back into the gun, I won't go over that. That's the same, pretty much lefty, righty, whatever. Now, getting the slide forward. There's a couple different techniques that you can do. One that always works, that I don't personally really ever use, is racking the slide. It's pretty simple. Once again, that's going to be the same lefty or righty, so I'm not going to go over that. I'm going to focus on how to hit the slide release or slide stop button after you've inserted a magazine. There's a couple ways that you could do that. Probably more than a couple. I'm going to cover a couple. This is one that I saw online, and if I remember correctly, the person I saw demoing this was Aaron Cowan of Sage Dynamics, and I haven't really done this a whole lot. I've tried practicing it a little bit, but not to the point where I'm comfortable doing it at a match or something like that. So I am going to demo it though. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to lift your trigger finger up so that it is sitting on top of the slide stop or slide release. And what that's going to allow you to do is, as you insert the magazine, the inertia of seating that magazine is going to drive the button up into your finger and is going to close the gun. So shown at speed-ish. Shooting, I'm going to drop the magazine out like this. I'm going to go reach for the new magazine, position my trigger finger here, and use the inertia of pushing that magazine up into my hand to close the slide. Now, one thing to be careful about this one is if you jump the gun on just closing the slide with your finger before the magazine is fully inserted, you're going to be closing the slide on an empty chamber. If you're here, it's going to click and you're going to have to rack the slide to get a live round in there. I'm sure it works fine. I'm sure there's people that do that with a very high degree of consistency, but that's not me. This technique was shown to me by Massa Yube in his Mag 40 class, and when I get to the point that I've been shooting and the slide locks back, this is generally what I do to reload the gun. The reason that I like this is it is, for me, faster than coming over the top and racking the slide, but it is a little more consistent for me than getting my finger above the slide stop. One reason for that is, if you look at different guns, for example, I shoot SIGs quite a bit, and this one is a 225. You can see where the slide release lever is. It's way back here. It is very difficult for me to get my finger up high enough to where I can do the technique of putting my finger above the slide release button. It compromises your grip quite a bit, at least for me. So the method here is same thing, inserting the magazine, and keep in mind my hand is going to end up something like this when I'm ready to shoot. So instead of inserting a magazine, moving my hand all the way up and all the way back down, I'm simply going to reach up and underneath with my fingers, and you can see I'm hitting that button there, drop that down, and my hand is pretty much in the position to start shooting. Now the nice thing about that is, really no matter what gun you have, I'm going to curl my fingers like that and I will find the slide stop button, whether it's back here like a SIG, here on the Beretta, up here farther forward. It's much more consistent for me, a little bit slower, but fairly quick. Another thing that's also a benefit, having these extended slide release buttons like you'll find on the competition Glocks, like the Beretta that I showed you, aftermarket slide releases of some sort, is as a lefty, when you are shooting, you are generally not interfering with that button at all. Now, I shoot with some people that just simply cannot use these extended buttons the way that they currently shoot, because the way they grip it, it interferes with that and causes either the slide to lock open prematurely, or their hand is riding on the top of it, and so the slide won't lock open when the last round has been fired. One nice thing about being a lefty is that button can be almost as big as anything that's currently made. I'm not getting in the way of it, and when I reach around to grab it, it's easier to hit. So, I'm not saying that it's better for a lefty than a righty, but pretty much I am saying that. Now, one last thing to point out, like I mentioned earlier, there are guns that come with slide releases on both sides. HK, Walther, this Ruger here, the M&Ps, and that can actually be a pretty big advantage. So even though something like this Ruger, where you have a magazine release button on both sides, for consistency's sake, I still drop the magazine the same way I always do. Although, on something like this, HKs, M&Ps for example, after inserting that magazine, you can hit the button just like, let me drop all of our nice equipment here, just like a righty would do, coming this way and hitting it. Now as a lefty, I can do the exact same thing. That is pretty much always going to be faster, just to hit that button if it is available to you. So if you are a lefty and you have not yet decided on which gun that you would want to buy, that is one feature that you can look at. That is absolutely not the deciding vote, in my opinion. It's not necessary. Like I said, I shoot the P-Series SIGs quite a bit, which obviously don't have that. But if that's a feature that you like, being able to hit that button with your thumb just like a righty, that might make you, or narrow down the choices of pistols that you might want to get.